Joe Ellis comes off the bench, plays 20 minutes, and breaks the box score. He didn't gently improve it, he broke it. 32 points, 13 rebounds, 15 made field goals in 19 shots. There was no three-point line, no modern spacing. He got hot from deep. There's no explanation like that you can lean on to make it make sense. He just walks into a game with Nate Thurmond, Jeff Mullins, Rudy LaRusso, Lenny Wilkins, Bob Rule, Thomas Sherry, and a bunch of real NBA people already in motion. For 20 minutes, Joe Ellis is the loudest thing in the room. That's the kind of game this project exists to catch. Because if you just tell Warriors history through the names everyone already knows, you miss the nights where a franchise gets lit up by somebody who wasn't supposed to be the headline. On November 23rd, 1968, at the Cow Palace, Joe Ellis was the headline. Welcome back to Warrior 100. I'm documenting one game per player until I reach 100. Today's Warrior 20, Joe Ellis. November 23rd, 1968. The Seattle Supersonics come to San Francisco. The Warriors win 132-119. And Ellis turns in a box score that looks fake until you stare at it long enough. Today's idea is simple. Sometimes a player's whole shape shows up in one burst. Not his whole career, and not everything that he was, but the thing he could do when the door opened. And for Joe Ellis, the door opened for 20 minutes. He kicked it clean off the hinges. Oh yeah, I think I'm pretty clever, don't I? Ugh. To get the temperature of this game, start with the Warriors. San Francisco comes in at 9-9, and that's about as honest as a basketball team can get. They're not bad. They're not good. They're just right in the middle. A lot of interesting teams live there, But the Warriors had just beaten LA and Los Angeles the night before 198. Then they came home and had to play again right away. It wasn't a soft landing. This is late 60s NBA travel. Tight schedules, small league, familiar opponents. I should say familiar. Familiar. Family-like. Family. And nobody's giving you a little wellness day because your hamstrings are just a little tired. The Warriors, they're carrying real talent. Nate Thurmond is the pillar. Jeff Mullins is becoming one of the league's better guards. Rudy LaRusso, he's a serious professional. Clyde Lee's working inside. Al Attles is still around. And then there's Joe Ellis, a local guy from Oakland. A USF guy, a player who belongs, but still hasn't fully taken over a permanent starting role. When you're watching a player like Ellis, the question isn't, can he play? Because obviously he can play. The question is, how much room does he get? How much of the game is allowed to become his? On this night, the answer is enough. Seattle's temperature is different. The Supersonics are just a little baby franchise. This is just their second season. They come in at 6-16, and they're carrying that specific smell, the expansion team smell. You know it. I used to follow the Heat back in the 80s. They were terrible. But you know, they're built with some real players, some useful veterans, some developing pieces, and a record that tells you they're still trying to become an actual NBA organism. But don't confuse a young franchise with an empty roster. Lenny Wilkins is there, and he's not just a future coach. He's a legitimate high-level NBA guard right now. Hall of Fame player in motion. Bob Rule is there. He can score. Thomas Sherry's there. That's the real connective tissue here because Sherry had been a Warrior. In fact, we talked about him not too long ago. Right here, see? He played with Wilt Chamberlain, and he was part of the Warriors' earlier San Francisco identity. Seattle got him in expansion, and now he's coming back in the other uniform. So there's something here. Seattle's becoming real, and San Francisco's trying to stay relevant in a Western division where the Lakers are the glamour monster. The NBA around them is fascinating that week. Fascinating. The league is in that weird hinge moment. The Celtics are not done, even though they look like they should be. Bill Russell's in his final season as player-coach. The Lakers have Wilt Chamberlain now, and that feels like somebody playing franchise mode with trade override turned on. The Knicks are building towards the team they're about to become. The Suns and Bucks are expansion teams, and the Supersonics are just a year older than that. So you got old power, new markets, expansion noise, and the sport starting to stretch itself into a different map. On the same night, Baltimore beats Detroit by 1 point. Atlanta beats Chicago. Philadelphia beats Cincinnati. Milwaukee edges Phoenix. Edgelord. New York beats Boston, and on the West Coast, Seattle and San Francisco play a game that doesn't really look historically massive from far away. Then Joe Ellis starts to make shots. Let's talk about Joe Ellis before we get into the game itself, because he's the main point here. Joe Ellis was born in Oakland. He went to McClemens High School, stayed local at the University of San Francisco, and became a serious hilltop figure. 3-time first-team All-WCAC, Northern California Player of the Year, Honorable Mention All-American, it's pretty good, USF Hall of Famer, jersey retired by the Dons. His jersey was retired by the Dons. He's not just a random bench guy who just wandered into an NBA box score one day. He was a decorated local player drafted by the San Francisco Warriors in the second round, 13th overall. Oakland kid, USF star, drafted by the hometown team. But the NBA doesn't care how neat your story is. Once you get there, everybody can play. Ellis's first 2 seasons were small steps. He played 41 games as a rookie, then 51 the next year. By 1968-69, he's in his 3rd season. He's 24, and his role is starting to get bigger. He ends up playing 74 games that year, averaging 23.4 points per minute, 12 points, and 6.5 rebounds. That's the profile. He's a useful forward and a good rebounder. He can score, and he's not going to be the first name on the scouting report. That's what makes this game pop, for me anyways. This isn't Nate Thurman doing Nate Thurman stuff for 46 minutes. By the way, he does that too, by the way. Thurman gives him 23 points and 19 rebounds. Jeff Mullins gives him 25, and Joe Ellis gets 20 minutes and plays like somebody turned the difficulty down. 20 minutes. He shot 15 for 19, scored 32 points, and pulled down 13 rebounds. The way it happens matters because this is 1968. There's no three-point line, so there's no mathematical cheat code. It's a 32-point game on 15 made shots. That means he's putting the ball in the basket over and over from 2-point territory, at the rim, mid-range, in whatever lanes the game is giving him. He also grabs 13 rebounds in those same 20 minutes. So it's not a heat check. He's physically in the game. He's on the glass, taking possessions, finishing them. He's doing actual forward work. That's the Ellis game. The game... so dumb. The game itself starts with Seattle looking very much alive. The Supersonics win the first quarter 30-28. It's not a team coming in to politely lose. Wilkins is steering them. Rule, he's scoring. Micheri's battling. Rod Thorne comes off the bench and gives him 19. They end up with 6 players in double figures and 119 points. That usually gives you a chance. But the second quarter is where the game turns. San Francisco wins the second quarter 47-27. That's the game right there. I mean, you can analyze the whole thing, and we will. Sometimes the line scores enough to put a flare gun in your hand. A 2-point Seattle lead becomes an 18-point Warrior lead by halftime. It's not a gentle swing, that's the floor tilting. With a box score like this, we don't need to pretend we have every possession in our pocket. We can see the shape. San Francisco shoots 53 for 98 overall. That's 54.1%. Seattle shoots 48 for 115, which is 41.7%. So the Sonics took 17 more shots and lost by 13. That's a bad sign. They were chasing, they were missing, they were getting volume, but San Francisco was getting quality. The Warriors also won the board 67-51. That's where this game becomes even more punishing, because Seattle isn't just missing more. They're also not ending enough San Francisco possessions when the Warriors miss. Thurman has 19 rebounds, Clyde Lee has 13, Ellis has 13, Bobby Lewis has 9. It's a lot of work. Bobby Lewis deserves a quick nod here too. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists off the bench. It's a pretty good supporting line. Almost gets swallowed because Ellis's line is stupid, but that's a real game. Jeff Mullins gives him 25 on 10 of 17. Thurman gives him 23, 19, and 5. Lee gives him 13 boards with 16 points. Ron Williams has 5 assists. The Warriors have 31 as a team, so the ball's moving. The glass is theirs, and Ellis is the accelerant. Seattle keeps playing. The third quarter's even, 30-30. The Sonics didn't just fold after halftime. They didn't get completely erased, but they also didn't cut into it. When you go down 18 at the half, then you draw in the third quarter, you're not solving anything. You're just spending your time. Then Seattle wins the fourth, 32-27. But it's too late. San Francisco closes it 132-119. And the Warriors are 10-9. That's the team meaning. They're above 500. They'd just beaten the Lakers on the road and handled Seattle at home. For a team that's going to spend a lot of the season seesawing, this is one of those moments where the season briefly looks stable. For Seattle, they dropped to 6-17, but it doesn't bury them. Weirdly, they turn it around here and win 4 straight after this. Get this: Milwaukee, Milwaukee, Chicago, Milwaukee. So, Milwaukee was the Supersonics tonic. But the big picture is still the big picture. Seattle finished 30-52 and missed the playoffs. San Francisco finished 41-41, third in the West, and made the playoffs. That playoff run becomes one of the great almost shapes. The Warriors get the Lakers in the Western Division semis. Wilt, West, Baylor, the whole thing. San Francisco wins the first 2 games in LA. They go into the Forum then they lose 4 straight. Because sports has a mean little office somewhere where it processes hope into paperwork. Ellis is part of that series too. In Game 5, with the Warriors trying to stop the collapse, he leads them with 23 points. That feels connected to this November game. Same basic idea. Not always the name you expect, but absolutely capable of taking a bigger shape when the night asked for it. Joe Ellis scored 32 points in 20 minutes. That's 57.6 points per 36. He grabbed 13 rebounds in 20 minutes. That's 23.4 rebounds per 36. Per 36 numbers can be goofy, and I don't want to brainy smurf you, where I secretly act like it means Joe Ellis is secretly Wilt Chamberlain if only the world had been fair. That's not what it means. What it means is that for one night, in one slice of one game, Ellis produced at a completely absurd rate. And the fun part is how old school the absurdity is. A modern 32-point bench explosion usually makes you picture threes, right? Maybe your guy hits 7 of them. The spacing breaks. Maybe the math gets weird. Ellis didn't have that option. Every field goal is worth 2 points. So 15 baskets is 15 times the defense failed to stop him from getting a real bucket. A 3-point heater can feel like lightning, but this feels like somebody carrying furniture up the stairs. Same result on the scoreboard. Very different kind of work. And that can absolutely create a new fan of old basketball. You look at one line, then suddenly the game isn't grainy footage or funny shorts or plumbers and firemen nonsense. It's a player in a real league against real professionals doing something so efficient it still jumps off the page nearly 60 years later. The Hall of Fame texture is strong here too. The force is strong with this one. Nate Thurman's on the floor, one of the greatest defensive centers ever, and he still gives you 23 and 19 like he's checking boxes on a form. Lenny Wilkens is on the other side, and he gives Seattle 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. Later, Wilkens becomes one of those rare people with Hall of Fame weight as both coach and player. Al Attles is on the bench in this game, and he later becomes one of the defining Warriors lifers. Player, coach, executive, ambassador, champion. And that's why I like these games in the middle of the list, because Joe Ellis is the focus, but the room around him is alive. A future championship coach, a relocated franchise, an expansion franchise, a former Warrior in Thomas Sherry wearing Seattle's colors, and a local Oakland USF guy having the most efficient night in the building. That's a lot of story for a regular season game in November. Honestly, that's the whole thesis of Warrior 100. History isn't just where the banners are. It's the weird box scores. It's in the second quarters. It's in the guy who played 20 minutes and gave you 32 points. For Ellis, the career after this settles into a very respectable shape. He stays with the Warriors through the San Francisco years and into the early Golden State years. He plays 8 NBA seasons, all with the Warriors. His best scoring season comes the next year, 1969-70, when he averages 15.8 points per game. He remains a useful scorer and rebounder. He absolutely belongs in the franchise memory. After the NBA, he plays in Belgium. Then his life takes a turn that I really like, because it makes the whole thing feel more human. He works for IBM for 17 and a half years. Then he works for San Francisco Parks and Rec, coaching youth basketball and table tennis. His son, Kevin, that's my name, later plays basketball at USF. That's a full circle life. Oakland kid, USF star, hometown Warrior, European pro, IBM, Parks and Rec, youth coach, family connection, back to USF. There's something grounded about that. And maybe that's why this game is such a good Joe Ellis episode. It's not asking us to inflate him into something he wasn't. We don't have to pretend he was a secret superstar. We don't have to stretch. We just have to look at November 23rd, 1968, 20 minutes, 32 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 15 of 19. That's enough. The Warriors win 132-119, and the season keeps moving. San Francisco ends up exactly 500, and that felt about right for a team with real talent and real flaws. Seattle will keep building, but they're years away from becoming the Lenny Wilkens championship team. The league is going to keep stretching. The Celtics are going to make one last impossible title run, and Joe Ellis gets this night. That's the part I keep coming back to. He gets this night, not as a footnote, not as a also played, not as a name underneath Thurmond or Mullins. For one game in November, Joe Ellis is the reason you stop scrolling. Next time we switch back to the Astros for Astro 45, Danny Darwin, July 25th, 1990. That one's going to be a different kind of veteran story. Darwin wasn't some mystery arm. He was a professional pitcher with miles on him. And on that night, he gives Houston one of those games where experience didn't look old. It looked sharp. So that's it for Warrior 20, Joe Ellis. November 23rd, 1968. 32 points, 13 rebounds, 20 minutes. One of the cleanest. Wait, he did what? Games. That was dumb. In this whole Warriors run. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. And stay kind and keep moving.